With hearts as strong as their coffee, the Giving Cup is a community coffee shop aimed at making a difference for the future success of the area. Located inside the Williamstown Banks in Lubeck in South Parkersburg, this donation-based coffee shop gives 100% of their profits to 7 local organizations. One of these organizations is the North Star Child Advocacy Center. Sharon Anderson, president and CEO of Williamstown Bank, is also on the board of directors for North Star. Anderson says being able to support and give resources to young people who have been through great trauma is important to the future of success in a community.
How can we expect them to be productive members of society if we're not helping them in their youth? If they've had these traumatic experiences, how can we expect them to grow into those productive members of society that our communities need to move forward if we're not out there trying to help them? So I feel that it is very important just for Wood County, for the Parkersburg MOV area, that we work to heal these children, and that we work to not only heal them so they can become productive members of society, but also in hopes of stopping that abuse cycle that often happens from generation to generation to generation.
The Giving Cup has been able to donate nearly $20,000 to North Star and over $85,000 in total to several organizations. WTAP and the Grand Central Mall will host the North Star Telethon April 24th at the Grand Central Mall.